The views, comments, and opinions of the following program do not necessarily reflect those of Morris Media Studios, MorrisMediaLive.com, or its affiliates. The views, comments, and opinions of the following program do not necessarily reflect those of Morris Media Studios, MorrisMediaLive.com, or its affiliates. Listener discretion is advised. Charlene, welcome to Liberated Sisters, broadcasting live right here at Morris Media Studios in the fabulous Leimert Park District of Los Angeles. Today we will have the Farrakhan Factor. However, our host for that segment, Brother Jesse Muhammad, will not be with us today. Brother Jesse will return next week. You know, the ever hardworking Brother Jesse is on the job, but he'll be back with us next week. Inshallah. Our guest in studio today is Brother DJ General Jeff. He's our fabulous longtime Skid Row activist. He'll discuss his recent trip to Berlin, Germany, and more. But first, the Justice Report. Today's Justice Report comes out of the Final Call newspaper, where we discuss the racist, liar, con man. Actually, that is the Final Call newspaper cover. President Donald Trump is on the front, as well as his former aide, Michael Cohen. Again, the cover is racist, liar, con man. In our cover story for the Final Call, one-time insider Michael Cohen testifies before Congress about life under Donald Trump, his operations and his schemes. But will the revelations mean anything, and will any action be taken as ugly accounts come to light? That's our Final Call newspaper cover story. And also in the Final Call newspaper, we will bring in very shortly our award-winning writer, Brother Brian 18X Crawford. He's been with the Final Call, I think, about 2 years, and has been doing a fabulous job. So Brother Brian 18X Crawford, as well as Brother Brian Muhammad, co-wrote a story on reparations. Reparations is in the national political dialogue amongst the presidential candidates for 2020. And so in a few moments, Brother Brian 18X Crawford will be with Liberated Sisters for his first time to talk about this. But before we get to that, I want to bring to light another national story in the Final Call, and it's actually in our editorial section, No Justice for Terrence, Stefan, or Black America. So I'm going to go right from the Final Call, and you can read these in full at finalcall.com. Once again, our editorial writes, legal decisions have come. Let me get my Mac going to the proper place here. Hold on a second. I apologize. This is the Justice Report. Once again, legal decisions have come back, and in the end, there is no justice for two unarmed black men shot to death by police officers. The failures came, according to our Final Call editorial this week, at the federal level and at the local level. So blacks cannot count on the federal government to protect their rights, nor can they count on local prosecutors to protect them from police officers who take lives under some of the worst circumstances. circumstances. This is what's happening in these two cases. The Justice Department decided on March 1st there was not sufficient evidence to pursue federal civil rights charges against a former white female police officer for the fatal shooting of Terrence Crutcher in Tulsa, Oklahoma in September 2016. The police helicopter video captured someone calling Mr. Crutcher a bad dude before anything happened. That's in Tulsa. Justifiable homicide, right? In Sacramento, California, officers Terrence Mercado and Jared Robinette they acted lawfully when shooting unarmed Stephon Clark. He's 22. They shot this young brother 7 times. And according to Sacramento County DA Anne Marie Schubert, that the police acted lawfully. Ms. Schubert said March 2nd that the reactions of the officers and their statements backed the cops' contention that they thought the young father had a gun. He had a cell phone and was in his grandparents' backyard when he was shot to death. And so, as the Final Call editorial writes, there's no justice for these two brothers or Black America. And you can read that at finalcall.com. And now we want to bring in Brother Brian 18X Crawford to talk to us about our national story on reparations and how is that going and what did he uncover as he co-wrote that with Brian Muhammad. Brother Brian, assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam, Sister Charlene. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm very good today. Praise be to Allah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining me here. This is your first time on Liberated Sisters, I think, right?
Yes, it is.
Welcome.
You so much for having me.
Oh, absolutely. First but not last, God willing. And thank you for all the work that you do for the Final Call. You're award-winning. You won our National Newspaper Publishers Association Award, and it was Best Feature. What was your award for, Brother Brian? And that was in 2018?
Yeah, 2018. It was for Best Feature Writing on the story that I did on the feminization of Black men.
Absolutely, absolutely. Oh, I should have had that cover. But it's at finalcall.com. And here's our brother Brian. So let's get into these Brians. I'm going to call you BB. BB. Let's get into your and Brother Brian's story about reparations and give us a little bit about what's happening with that in this upcoming run to the 2020 U.S. presidential elections primaries.
Well, as you know, the reparations movement has basically been politicized now. There was a lot of talk of it. If I'm not mistaken, I believe this conversation actually started online with a group of people who call themselves ADOS, American Descendants of Slaves. And so that's kind of how the whole reparations conversation started. It literally kind of generated on the internet with a hashtag.
Wow.
And from now, it's, and from there, they've created enough noise, they've got enough attention to where, you have actual politicians talking about it. There is still a lot of misunderstanding about, at least just from my perspective, a lot of misunderstanding about reparations. The biggest being that, a lot of people just want to equate it to cutting a check. And a lot of it is also because people think this is new. But if you go back and look through the history, reparations has always been a topic. It's just that, now you have a bunch of people who could be considered disgruntled Democrats who don't want to just kind of vote anymore along party lines. They're looking for something from politicians to present. They want to have a Black agenda. And so that's where the reparations conversation is coming from. And now they've put enough pressure on politicians to where each of them have been forced to kind of engage in the discussion somewhat.
Wow. And so who's with and who's without? Because I saw reports that are saying that Kamala Harris is supporting it. As I was looking at this, she did not say that.
Yeah, nobody actually.
She did not say that.
Yeah, no politician that I've seen has actually, none of the main ones anyway, right?
Right, so except for Marianne Williamson.
Right. You're talking about Kamala Harris. You're talking about Cory Booker. We know Bernie Sanders is staunchly against it and has been for a long time. Nobody is actually 100% for it. All of the politicians basically take the reparations approach. Yeah. Instead of just making it about Black people, kind of creating something that benefits everybody, and then obviously Black people would benefit. That's the logic. So nobody's actually addressing you can't have a conversation about reparations without talking about slavery and Black people. And none of the politicians have addressed it directly, not even the black women. So they've all kind of sidestepped it. So
right.
there has been no support for it, no full support yet. Like you said, outside of Marianne Williamson, who gave that lowball figure like $100 billion or something like that.
Right, and people are like, that's a down payment.
Yeah, like if you're not talking about trillions at this point, you're not even really talking about anything. But
that's right.
So I'm hoping that the conversations will continue and lead to something more tangible. I'm not holding my breath, but if the pressure keeps up, we'll see how these politicians cave in.
Yeah, cave would be the correct term. I spoke to, when I was speaking with with our national spokesperson for the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, Minister Ava Muhammad. She echoed sentiments and said that yes, as we know, like Brother Tariq Nasheed, who has been really going in online, saying that this is some carrot. This is a ruse. Like, don't be tricked. That this is something for the Democratic Party to say, hey, look, we're with you. But our guest, Brother General Jeff, who is going to be coming in very soon with the Skid Row report, mentioned also that Elizabeth Warren is for it. But I also note that Elizabeth Warren said that the Native Americans, our Native Indigenous brothers and sisters, should be included in the dialogue. But there are studies, right, Brother Brian, discussions, dialogue. But at the end of the day, the U.S. walked out when there was the reparations conference, when they were discussing this as a violation against humanity. They walked out in Durban. And so what would make people think that they would be doing anything here? But we could study this to death and still not have it,
Right. Well, I mean, that's the thing. You can't, obviously, us in the nation as Muslims who have been, taught by Minister Farrakhan and who have come up under the teachings of Elijah Muhammad, we all know that at the end of the day, it's all going to circle back to one thing: do for self.
That's right.
We can't count on anybody to do anything for us, and we certainly have seen enough evidence from this government to know that they're never going to do anything for us. So
that's right.
Even if we're having this conversation about reparations, if to me, I don't want it to, or it's not having to do with me personally, but I mean, just if I can say, like, I don't want it to be a situation where people just feel good about the conversation, and then once the election is over, then it's like, what do we do next?
Yeah.
So instead of just holding on to hope that America will finally do right by black people, we're all going to have to go back to the beginning, which is, doing for self and, and looking out for each other.
Yeah, absolutely. And now some people I have dialogued with about this they did express excitement that the conversation was taking place, because they were saying it's time that it gets on that national level, but as Dr. Ava Muhammad, Minister Ava, points out, that there's no coincidence that this is coming up at a time where she's on a national tour. The minister, or she's on the minister's behalf, taking a referendum is coming up. So she's going around the country posing the questions, should blacks consider reparation? And so she feels that there's no coincidence that this is coming up at this time. If I could, before you go, let's go through some of the commentary that you and Brother Brian received from those that you interviewed for the final call. And also let's mention that when we talk about studying reparations, right, as you have in the article, and as some may know, that former Congressman John Conyers has H.R. 40, had already introduced the bill to study reparations. So let us know about how some of the people responded to you all for the story.
Well, the people I spoke with, you mentioned him earlier, Brother Tariq Nasheed. He's really been going hard on it.
Punching with it, right? Yeah, he's been banging pretty hard.
Yeah, he was. So, praise be to Allah that he was able to talk to me about this issue on short notice, because I've been following him pretty heavy on Twitter and seeing things that he's been saying. But, one of the things that he said is, and the people who are fighting for reparations, they don't want to fall for another trick. They don't want to just, they just don't want it to be a conversation and nothing actually comes from it. So, he understands he understands politics and how it goes, and, how politicians are professional at talking circles around an issue without actually dealing with it. So, he's basically been going pretty hard on, demanding that there be something, again, I use the word again that they use all the time, tangible. Like, we want to see something, we want to hear something, we want to know something that specifically for black people, not just a plan that can help everybody.
Yeah.
And another brother that I spoke to is a Pan-Africanist by the name of Omawale Africa. The reason I spoke with him is because as part of this reparations discussions, obviously you have the ADOS group who has basically been kind of getting this conversation happening on a national level. But then you have Pan-Africanists who, who are consider themselves Garveyites, who understands that this reparations fight has been going on for a very long time. So there's a rift between those two factions. You have some people in ADOS who feel that Pan-Africanism is dead, while Pan-Africanists say, there is no reparations conversation without Pan-Africanists being involved. So, with me being able to talk to him, he's very much a historian on this issue. He talked to me about things like in Cobra. Obviously, UNIA with Garvey and things like that. He's one of those people who kind of lays out the history of the conversation to let people know, like, hey, this is not a new conversation. It may be new to you guys, and it certainly may be new on a national level, but the reparations fight has been going on for a very long time, and so you cannot just cut out a specific group of people because you feel like their methods don't work. Actually, if you look at it in reality, Marcus Garvey did incredible things, with his Pan-Africanist movement, with the ship line and things like that. You even look at the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, with everything that he was able to do with the fish markets and stuff. So, the reparations and the do for self, this stuff is it's been going on for a very long time. It's just new to a lot of people. So it's always good to get those two. You get somebody who is currently actively involved in the political side of it, and then you get someone who's involved on the historical side of it, and you bring those two ideas together so people can have a fuller picture of the issue.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much for that, Brother Brian. And as we make way for our next segment, the Farrakhan Factor, I just want to leave people with this from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and you can Google this, finalcall.com, actually, and there's an article added up. If I'm not mistaken, I think this is from Volume 1, Issue 4 of the Final Call newspaper. Minister Farrakhan talks about what is the price that people could really put on black life, right? So if 100 million of us, this is a quote from Minister Farrakhan, well, if 100 million of us lost our lives in the Middle Passage, added up, what is one black life worth? 300 years working from can't see morning to can't see night for no pay. 300 years working millions of slaves for nothing. Add it up. Added up, added up. He continued, the killing of our fathers and mothers after mating them like animals, then taking the children and naming us after the slave master, stripping us of our language, our God, our religion, our minds. Added up, think about it, the destruction of our families. So I'd like to leave people with that as we segue to the Farrakhan Factor. And Brother Brian, thank you so much for coming on the Liberated Sisters.
No problem. Thank you so much for having me, Sister Charlene. I appreciate it.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
And so now we're going to turn to the Farrakhan Factor. Minister Farrakhan speaks here in this clip on his character, journey, and rise. And after that, we're going to be going to our Skid Row activist here, Brother General Jeff, in studio. Stay tuned.
Today, I want to introduce you to Jesus. Because you have never seen Jesus. Because if you saw Jesus, you would observe something that you had never seen the likes of before in a world as wicked as this one. You would have to observe Jesus. You would have to concentrate on Jesus. Then you would have to submit and surrender so that he could make you his disciple. Meaning he's going to discipline us into something we had never experienced after 400 years. Living under the tyranny of white supremacy and the filth and wickedness of those who had us in slavery. Many of our slave masters had the freedom to take our women and abuse them. But they not only abused women, they abused men. Because most of the slave masters were freaks. They loved the flesh of our women, and they loved to do freakish things to us. That is why a Savior had to come. And the Savior, I'm talking about Jesus. The Savior, in the writings in the scripture says, he came, listen to his words, to save us from our sins. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad added something to that. He came to save us from the sins of white people. That we have been under them for over 400 years, and they have made us into themselves. Jesus Christ is a new man. The old man, follow me in the scripture, you scriptural scientists. The old man is called Adam. The new man is Jesus Christ. The old man was made from the dust of the earth, but the new man is made of a quickening spirit. Two Adams. I didn't know that I was being made into something I had never dreamed that I could be. There's nobody in America like Farrakhan. Nobody stronger. Nobody more fearless. Nobody more courageous. Nobody who will not bow down to Satan or white people in power.
Nobody, man. We just have to bear witness to that. That is the truth. You won't find one on the planet or in the universe. So this is Liberated Sisters. I'm Sister Charlene Muhammad, your host, and we have to turn right now to our brother, DJ General Jeff. Of course, that was the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan speaking. That was an excerpt from his Savior's Day address this year. A Savior is born for humanity. No one need perish. Brother General, Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, my sister. Thank you for having me. That's a hard act to follow, but I'm going to try to do my best. I mean, the Honorable Minister was coming with that fire.
Yeah.
Woo, that was my first time seeing that. I didn't, I've never attended Savior's Day, but oh my, that's wow. It's a lot of motivation going on, and so and a lot of truth. Yeah. And it's absolutely wonderful and amazing to see that right now. So I'm your liberated brother, down with my liberated sisters, and we here.
Yeah, welcome back. Thank you. And he spoke 4 hours, Brother General.
Wow.
And that was just that one day. Before then, he was meeting with people. It was just hours and hours and hours long. Wow. Ministers on the march still trying to save us. 86.
86 and going strong.
86 this year. Yeah, praise be to Allah that we still have him with us. So,
indeed.
But Brother General, you back fresh off a trip to Berlin, Germany.
Yes.
Taking Skid Row activism to an international level.
Indeed. That's
and
right.
it's only fitting that it would be you doing that. So tell us,
Thank you.
How did you get to Berlin? Why did you go? And what happened there?
On a plane?
This is not a boat. This is the Skid Row report.
Thank you. So, on the plane.
No boats overseas.
It wasn't first class, though.
As we talk about reparations, they'll do better.
10.5 hours from LAX to London. I'm 6'4", brother 6'4", them in coach. So brother knees,
yeah,
my knees.
Well,
went
welcome
through
back.
But thank you for having me. And it was all about the business. I didn't do any sightseeing. First of all, the temperature was 30 degrees. The high was 30 degrees. So you know what the low was at night. And so it's even more subconsciously frightening and intimidating when they go by Celsius, so the numbers are a whole lot lower. 9 degrees, like wait.
You had your own polar vortex.
And then come to find out, right? And then come to find, oh, you mean Celsius? Okay, well, I don't even know how to calculate. I'm not going to be. I was there for a week. I'm not even going to waste my time calculating. It was just cold, COLD.
Yeah.
All I heard was the temperature today is going to be COLD, and so it was great that there was a lot of English speaking over there. So I squat. Like, hold on, I need interest. So, but it was great. It was really great. It's part of the Berlin Film Festival. And so let me get to it. So the thing was, I have a USC professor here, Professor Alex McDowell, that he has his World Building Institute out of USC's School of Cinematic Arts.
Okay.
And so, I've been working with his class from a couple of semesters ago. And, gave him the tour of Skid Row, just give him the background on Skid Row.
Yeah.
And, so out of that, it's kind of like when you say, well, what does, Skid Row and cinematic arts, what does it have to do with Germany? And so, great question. I'm glad you asked. So the thing is like character development, like in screenwriting. So you say, okay, here's the characters. You got the husband, the wife, the kids, the school teacher. So, okay, hold on. So what they do is they go extensively and in-depth into the backgrounds of each specific character. Mm-hmm. So say like the husband, what makes him who he is? So they go all the way back to his childhood, who his parents were, what communities, what schools they went to, what communities they were born and raised in that made them who they were. Mm-hmm. How did they meet? So then it comes into, what community and what family support structure was the husband.
Right.
And it comes all into his schooling, his mindset, all his things.
Right.
And then how did he meet his wife to make him who he is, at this point in time. And they do that extensive character development for like all the different characters in the scripts. And so this is, it's a whole nother level now. It's not just about, this is what he said, and this is what she said, and this is what they said, and this is what that. No, they go deep into that. And so this is more like exercises and giving them different scenarios. And so somehow the professor contacted me and asked if I would come speak, and they wanted to do a focus, just specifically on Skid Row. Mm-hmm. And so we did that, and so that worked out so well at the end of the semester. And I made sure that I was there, periodically throughout the entire semester. I told her, hey, here's my phone, call me, and I'll be there. And so it was great because the students had questions.
Wow.
And so it's one thing that, you can tell when something's about a class assignment, and you can tell when something is really hitting their spirit.
They're genuine.
And they genuinely want to know, but why? It's like we understand homelessness, we thought we knew, but based on the truth of what you're saying, why is that? We need to know more, and so there's this thirst for the truth and more information. And so I was there the whole entire semester, and so that went over so well. The professor said, I've got this other group that may be interested in having you come talk to them. Right. If you want, I'll forward your information. Great. I'm thinking it's another somewhere else on campus. Somewhere on USC. Okay, great. 2 days later, I got an email and said, "Oh, we heard a lot of great things about you. We'd like to invite you to Berlin, Germany." Mm-hmm. Wait, what? Is this the same? Like, who, you heard about me? What? So anyway, so then I found out that they were connected to the professor, and so what the professor did was he goes around the world. Exactly when he said World Building Institute, because he used to be in Hollywood.
Wow.
He worked on like the same type of the in-depth character development. He did that on, say, like with Steven Spielberg on like the Minority Report with Tom Cruise, Leviathan, and a lot of different other movies. And then I don't, not to say that he's done it, but other people in Hollywood have used that same style for like, what was the movie, Leonardo DiCaprio, Inception, and a lot of the futuristic movies, and they have to, because it got to make sense. You can't be far-fetched. Okay, then all of a sudden your storyline goes off a cliff, and then you just pick up it. And then all of a sudden this happened. Wait a minute, it's got to really make sense, and so they really do this. It goes more than just storyboards. It's deep. And so what he did on this one, he challenged, and it was interesting. So it's Berlin is a part of the Berlin Film Festival.
Okay.
And so, I really didn't know. I'm so busy, got my sleeves rolled up, and I'm on the front lines of Skid Row. Like, Berlin, Germany. So I had my old passport, and I've been using it as a wallet. I really paid. So when they said they mentioned it, I pulled it out of my pocket, and it tore into 3 pieces. And I was like, uh-oh. I wonder if TSA is going to let me fly with this if I throw a couple of rubber bands. some crazy, get some glue on it. I'll show up. So I had to go chase down. Like, they're not going to let no black man roll across the world looking like that. So that passport. So I had to run around. So I was running around chase. So I had to go do a whole bunch of other stuff. And so then I checked on, weatherchannel.com. Owned by our brother Byron Allen, and so you get the latest update and come to find out.
Shout out to Byron.
Come to find out, it's about to be like super duper cold and rainy, and so I had to go, bulk up because I'm in sunny California. Yeah, my gear is not Germany ready, if you will. Yeah. For extreme cold.
So how did you handle anything there?
So when I got there, I'm still not know. I'm just gonna go talk about Skid Row. I can talk about Skid Row all day long. So I really don't know what was going on. And so then when I got there and that morning, so it was a week-long festival, and so then we had 3 separate workshops, 2 on a Monday and 1 on a Wednesday. So I'm like, okay, great. So what's happening Tuesday? Free time. Hey, thinking sightseeing, whatever, maybe see some of the other films. I didn't really leave my hotel room. I was kind of hesitant about a lot of things. I don't want to be brother just walking around aimlessly through Germany. Ain't nothing come up missing.
Yeah, you don't do that.
I didn't,
Yeah.
But,
so what did they?
So it was interesting. So that morning at breakfast, the professor, and then he has a co-director, a facilitator in Germany, Juan Diaz B. And so. So I joined them at breakfast, and they were saying, so the thing is they challenged these students. So there wound up being 40 participants in this workshop. They call it Production Design Studio. And so what it is they challenged. So I led one group. There was another Professor Paul from Ireland. And in Belfast, they have a similar community that's going through struggle like Skid Row. And so I led one side of the group, and he led the other side of the group. And so what the thing was, the challenge was to go back 30 or 40 years and change one moment back then, and then that would forever change the direction of this specific community. So in Skid Row, like you have your lane 1, which is reality, and then you have your parallel universe, which is lane 2. And then coming out of it, so you go back 30, 40 years to change one moment in time. Then come back to the future, to this new community, and then you create your character off of this new community, and you can take it, and of course they want to take it into positive realm. So I gave the background on Skid Row, and what was so incredible to me was that the group decided amongst themselves. Again, I got 40 people over here, and they decided to go back to when Ronald Reagan was the governor, and he defunded the state-run mental institution, and they let everybody wound up good. So what they did was they said, so they rewrote history and said Ronald Reagan got another acting job, and he stayed in Hollywood and never came into politics. So all his initiatives and all the things he did, it never happened. Wow. And so that one moment in time then changed the course of Skid Row forever. And then they were able to come back to the present time and create this whole new environment and community. Wow. And then from there make these amazing characters with real life experience. Oh, it was deep. It was amazing. And so at the end, I was practically in tears because I was so moved. Wow. Because the workshop participants were from around the world: Austria, Colombia, Brazil, India, Taiwan, Philippines, Amsterdam, Sweden, UK, and of course Germany. So and they all had buy-in. So what I didn't know is that in order for them to be, when they signed up for this workshop, they had to do the research. And so they knew, it was going to be Skid Row and Ireland. So even the people that were on the Ireland side, they still had to, do research on Skid Row.
Because they had a grasp of it to know about Reagan.
They didn't know which group they were going to end in. And so when I'm giving them, the truth and the history, normally we get back questions. It's kind of entry-level-ish. And they're coming with like advanced thinking, kind of like, wait, how would you even know that unless you? And how did she? And this, wait a minute, this is an advanced group that really. And so I don't have to give basic entry level answers. We could really like get deeply into it. And so, oh man, it was beautiful. And so by the end, I'm practically in tears because I'm honored. That for one, even as a black man, that they accepted my information as absolute truth. They didn't question, they didn't doubt, they didn't dispute. Even when you can go online, you can see fake news or contrasting news stories that we can question anything. No, and it was just nothing but love. And what was interesting, some of the folks in there, they said that in their countries, there are communities that are fighting through similar struggle. And so when they started speaking about things, especially as it pertains to the political aspects of poverty, homelessness and people just being poor all over the world, third world conditions and all of that, and it just. The common denominators were striking, and so that so that went so well.
What were some of those common denominators? And I'm enjoying this because I'm thinking international or world platform, and they targeted what happened with Reagan and the mental institutions. That's really understanding a major part of the problem. But what were some of the similarities?
Well, obviously, it just comes down to haves and the have-nots.
Okay.
It doesn't matter what political party, what political structure, things about communism, socialism, capitalism, Marxism, fascism. It doesn't matter. It's haves and have-nots. The people, the dictatorships, monarchies, whatever it is, you have people that are in power. And they're not sharing the wealth. They're not sharing control. It's
and they're taking yours.
Right. And then they, so the whole thing is, I think it's worldwide, it's internationally established that there has to be a working class in order for any country to continue to move as a society. So that means there's a whole lot of people that when they, put it like this: if everybody in a country, just country X, and in country X, if everybody had millions of dollars, nobody would work. The country come to a complete halt. So everything from who would drive the Ubers, who would drive the bus, who would flip the burgers, who would work in the stores, who would cut the grass, who would, I'm a millionaire. Cut your own grass, do your own thing, right? Yeah. So so they have to create a working class, like a mule with the carrot dangled in front of it to make the country moving forward. And then they tax the hell out of those folks, and then that's the tax base that actually keeps a country afloat.
Yeah. So the working class, okay, we get that, right? Because we know all the civilizations have had wealthy, you've had slaves, aristocrats, but the level of the poverty and the permanent underclassism, although that's not a word, underclassism, but the level of poverty that we see in Skid Row and those communities worldwide where that's happening, it's just criminal.
Sure.
Because there's so much wealth that could be shot down and still maintain the status quo if that's what people want to do.
Yeah, and the reason why is because now, and I call it, the modern day Skid Row. I'm speaking on Skid Row specifically, but it applies worldwide. In about the mid 70s, again with this, Ronald Reagan shutting down the state-funded mental institutions, and then thus they created that led to the creation of the Skid Row containment zone that really created this area of containment.
52 blocks, right?
That 50 blocks, 50, and LAPD law enforcement, they police even to this day with that same mindset. This box, this containment zone, this area where they don't want the Skid Row existence to spread out citywide. But then because homelessness, there's a lot of poverty. They've learned how to capitalize off of the existence of homelessness. And so now homelessness is spread out wide because all these nonprofit organizations, these charity groups, these social service providers, they're like, as long as homelessness continues to exist, it's more funding for them. Yeah. So they're not really trying to help the way we help to end it. Yeah. They hoping to put themselves in position to financially gain profit from it. Yeah. And so you've got the local charities, the national charities, they're all flooding themselves into Skid Row, in the 50-block community. In 2014, LAPD, I don't know where they got the number from, but they said there were 107 nonprofits in Skid Row. And I'm thinking, that's like over more than 2 to 1 ratio per block. So I'm thinking, all y'all got to do is take care of your block, and there it is. It's done.
It's cleaned up.
But the whole thing is, like the CEOs and executive directors are making six-figure salaries as high as $200,000 and $300,000 in Skid Row. When you go about to, go on to the, the national nonprofits and CEOs and, like the United Ways and all them, it's more money than that. Somebody, a lot of people have been telling me, like the CEO of the Red Cross earns is either $600,000 a year or $650,000 a year. Like, what are they? Where is this money going?
And that's supposed to be money that's supposed to be places.
You see what I'm saying? And so then now, if you got all these over 100 nonprofits in Skid Row, and they chasing after that money, and then the thing is, the regulations come from Washington D.C. So they dictate like how to help if you're a nonprofit, your qualifications, your restrictions, And so then if it's loose in Washington, D.C., then it's loose in Sacramento, and then it's loose in City Hall here in Los Angeles, and it's just a free-for-all. It's capitalistic society. And so that's what's interesting in the common denominator going around with these other folks from these other countries is that, those in power set the tone. And it's supposed to be trickle-down economics. I don't know. It seems like it, but just like I say, even when it's drizzling, the water evaporates before it touches the ground. So trickle-down economics. The resources dry out before they trickle and hit the people truly in need.
Wow.
And so in Skid Row, so in Skid Row, and that was the whole thing about when you established the first understanding of whatever country and the powers, the haves and the have-nots and all of that. Then you have, in every country, they have what I call, societies unwanted. For some reason, they can't keep up with the Joneses, or they don't want to, compete in the rat race, and you have to, you must. It's an obligation. If you're born in life, you have to do this. Some people are just saying, I don't want to do that.
Wow.
Because you want me to conform to this capitalistic mindset, this dog eat dog mindset, and kill or be killed kind of a thing. It's like, I'm a human being, and I'm spiritual, I'm calm, I'm peaceful.
Yeah.
We want to live in harmony. And so they want to go away from that. And so now, we can't use you. And then why? So then there's systemic oppressive systems in place.
Wow.
And us as black people in America, we're the main target, like the Honorable Minister was referring to. And so in that regard, we're being reduced. So, of course, a lot of people know about the prison industrial complex.
Yeah.
Where in the state of California, there are 33 state prisons. Like, why are there so many prisons? I mean, in this, like they said, the economy is in California is large enough to, to be the fifth leading economy in all the world, greater than, many countries. So why is there so much, prison? The prison industry, it's a business. So they're capitalizing. So in order, when they privatize the prison stock and they trading it on Wall Street, so all of a sudden it's like in order for them to turn a profit like any other corporation, they have to stay full. Yeah. So in order they stay full, so that means they have to lock brothers and sisters up at a high level to keep this stock going. And so it's not even about so we're a commodity to feed that system and those jobs of the people that work in the prison. It's the same exact thing with the homeless industrial complex. So these nonprofits are continuing to eat and continue to thrive. These CEOs and executive directors often is funded, and now they're providing for their families. So that cleans their conscience. Yeah. So they, I'm just doing my job. I'm just, providing for my family. You're messing over the lives and families and women and children and homeless in the streets and in need. And like, we're doing all we can. It's insane. And so then
they're coming into that system.
Homeless industrial complex. Yeah. And so since the mid 1970s, so they've got a good 40-year run and a head start. We're just now waking up and figuring out, hey, wait a minute, this is a scam and y'all are all in on it. Yeah. So they're poverty pimping, and I'm calling it just like following the strength of Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. I'm calling them out on it. They're poverty pimping. That's exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, you said that. You said that from day one. Do you remember? I remember I wrote an article, Brother Pride.
I said that in Germany too.
Yeah,
poverty pimping. Absolutely.
I know you kept it real.
I didn't go over there to be shucking and jiving.
Let's give a shout out to people listening. I can't see all of the names because Facebook gives you about 5 or 6. But Evelyn Pitts, Erlin Erlen Pitts said, Mark of the Beast. Sister Beachy X Keaton, thank you for tuning in. Sister Shauna Joy. And we got Sister Molly Bell straight out of Compton on. She's listening. And so many others, but I can't see your names there. But thanks for tuning in. And we're still on for another 19 minutes. So share. Oh, here goes Molly Bell. General Jeff. Okay, here she goes. Are you seeing? Hey, Sister Molly. Assalamu alaikum.
And always to God be the glory.
Thank you, Carl. Are you seeing any growth? These are a series of questions. Sure. Are you seeing any growth? Is there any good coming out of the many votes taken to make the changes? Can we win or even tie? So first, are you seeing any growth?
Growth in the numbers of homelessness, because as the homeless bodies grow, the resources and the need grows, and then they can justify on paper the bigger ask from the funders, whether it's Washington D.C. and all of that, so they can get more money.
Okay, because you got three. Sure. Is there any good coming out of the many votes taken to make the changes?
No.
Okay. No, Molly. Can we win or even tie?
Ooh, we can. Not today or tomorrow. You know, we have to have widespread understanding of the truth. And that's why I appreciate coming on a show like Liberated Sisters to tell our brothers and sisters and allies, you know, these are the truths of what's going on. We can't, you know, it's like playing chess and you don't know the rules of the game. You don't really know the moves. And so they making moves and they just winning at the game. And now we're trying to keep, okay, how did he go left, 3 left and then go right to the, so this knight can actually move and the bishop can do something. we trying to figure, but in the middle of the game, we can't win like that. So then if we get somebody that's really experienced enough to say, no, you can't move this one, you know, to download the game. So, okay, we need our people to understand the truth. So now once we all get on that same wavelength, now we can move as a unit, as an entity, as a true positive spirit, and then now we can actually offset and truly compete. And when we compete on a high level, advanced level, now we can talk about winning. It's like LeBron James and Lakers. They talking about winning championships. Y'all can't even make the playoffs. How you going to win or tie? No, ain't no tie. It ain't no tie. Especially in the capitalistic society, it's, you know, win or lose, have and have not. It's right now, we're reduced to a state of have-nots. And so when they talk about reparations, you know, I'm deeply concerned because right now we're not even the true mental state of mind to actually do the right things. If they issued us, you know, all of a sudden black folks got millions of dollars all of a sudden, man, we're going to give it right back. We're going to start partying, buying and consume everything that the whites and the Europeans generate, and we get the money right back instead of investing in our communities, you know, getting some black ownedness up in us.
We'll ever beat homelessness because we can. We really can.
Well, the thing is, it's just like, you know, people wanting empty prisons. And so, you know, so the thing about that is, you know, like as long as people are without, so they can, it's poverty, put it like this, poverty can be created. Mm-hmm. You know, when people are broke and they're starving, you know, they're going to go out and do what they got to do to feed themselves. And so that means, you know, potentially if they don't have it, crime can happen. So if crime happens, then they justify the need for jails and prisons. So if, you know, homelessness exists, then that justifies a need for the nonprofits, the missions, the shelters. And then with that, the system is already in place to, you know, to infiltrate and compromise, you know, whatever support system it truly is supposed to be. Mm-hmm. And so once that happens, there needs to be oversight. And once they're oversight, they always put themselves in those power controlling positions. And there it is there. The system is compromised right then and there. And so, you know, we have to look at alternative solutions, not just in, you know, jail reform, prison reform, bail reform. You know, this homelessness structure, we need to reform that whole industry. Same thing with the education, the school curriculums. You know, we need to have, just like at a menu in a restaurant, you know, there needs to be multiple curriculums, and the parents and the teachers, and they meet and decide before the school semester which curriculum is going to be best suited for my child. Because if they only got one size fits all, if the child doesn't identify with that school curriculum, you're wasting time.
Hey,
so
children learn differently.
Right.
Everybody learns differently.
Right. And so there needs to, you know, so these are the types of true solutions that need to be put on the table so that we can actually heal as a society and move forward. But, when you have heavy presence of law enforcement, especially in black and minority communities, they're constantly instilling trauma and intimidation in us. It's hard for us to heal, because as human beings, we adapt to our environment. So if it's an environment of negative energy, what are we adapting to? And then over these years, that's what we've become. So now that we're waking up to that, we can initiate the alternative solutions to heal our own communities. And so it's the same thing with homelessness when we need that different curriculum. It's like you said, with the students, everybody learns differently. Everybody overcomes homelessness differently. Yeah. And so we need multiple solutions that actually has proven to work. Because the whole thing is, just like with the homelessness, there's not one entity, while they're on their websites and their mission statements, they saying they aim to end homelessness, raise awareness. And those are nonprofit marketing fluff words. And when you hear that, the red flag should come on immediately, because homelessness never ends. It just transfers from person A to person B, and it keeps on going. Yeah,
and it's growing, the amount of women, children, whole families. That's a good place for me to ask you about this. So I wrote about a new report for the LA Sentinel and the LA Watch Times, and the story is dealing with this new study, a recent study now, that says that racism drives black homelessness. And so this was done by, this is a report and recommendations of the Ad Hoc Committee on Black People Experiencing Homelessness, right? And this was formed at the direction of the LASA Commission, right? So one of the things that they found was that discrimination in housing, employment, criminal justice, and child welfare policies have led to the disproportionate numbers of blacks in homelessness, right? Now, these are some of the recommendations, and I want to get your opinion on how this can go. So there are 67 recommendations out of the 9-month study. And what they're recommending is improving data collection, analysis and collaborative research to better understand and track issues affecting blacks experiencing homelessness, and advance racial equitable policies, programs, and funding across institutions. And so it's a very extensive report. This is just a little bit about it. The article is in the LA Sentinel and LA Watch Times. That's lasentinel.net and lawatchtimes.com. But as I looked at this, and I did ask Supervisor Mark Ridley Thomas, there when they launched the report, what's new, because we know that racism is a driver, it's a driving force here. But Brother General, I mean, we're studying. But what is your opinion about this report?
First of all, it's not nothing new. As you just said, it's all information that we've already known. And so basically, and I went to the first few meetings, because I'm like, oh, this may be something. This, I need to be in the room. And I'm not offended that I wasn't on that committee. You're talking about black folks experiencing homelessness, and Skid Row is the homeless capital of America. And, I'm on the front lines. I've been there for 12 years and counting. And it's like, no, I'm glad, some people are like, how come you wasn't on the committee? I'm glad I wasn't, because I can be on the sideline and be, analyze the situation. And so I went to the first few meetings, and I can see their whole thing, first of all, it's only about a report. And so they're just grabbing data and statistics from other LASA groups and other ally groups and CE, all this stuff. And so they didn't go collect their own data. I have a problem with that. That's what's going on in America. And so then 3 to 5 years, for every 3 to 5 years, the information is old and outdated. We need to update the report. And so, so my whole thing is, they're going to, in the very first meetings, what is the intentions? What are we doing here? Oh, we want to generate a report. And so now they have a moment in time that they can point to say, hey, we've got this document that says things ain't good for black folks. Another report we already know this. What are y'all going to do about and so then my whole thing is all these, billions and billions of dollars of funding going towards homelessness. My whole question is, how much of that funding is going to 67 recommendations. How much money is connected to this ad hoc committee? How, the report that comes out, is there any dedicated funding specifically to it? They come out and say, hey, we've got these recommendations. Here's this wonderful, fancy report. Now, out of this, now they got to go chase after some funding so it's like, that's nothing but paperwork. And it's over time, it's just going to sit on people's shelves and collect dust. And so you got to dedicate. And so that's what we don't know as a people. And again, when I talk about us having to have the same real-time information to be on the same wavelength, right off top, we could have just smashed on them and said, we need significant funding attached to the report. So then whatever recommendations are put forth, that funding can immediately, interject those recommendations into our societies and our communities so that we get some type of sustained effort. And so maybe not out of 67 may be a lot, because even if it was like $67 million, that's $1 million per recommendation. That's a whole lot. You're not gonna. It's gonna be really hard to find $67 million to put $1 million per recommendation. And so but because that just shows in and of itself. When they first went out, I heard that there was like over 300 recommendations, and they had to try to knock it down because. And that's the thing. Homelessness. You're talking about Black people specifically experiencing homelessness. There's so many. Overreaching, overarching, and intertwining issues. I mean, hundreds. I mean, we could be here all day talking about that. So, where are the actual solutions in place? So they got a report. So the media. So now we can point. Oh, this report. This report right here. This. What? Okay. What about the solution? We've been homeless. We still homeless. We've been on the bottom of the economic totem pole. We still on the bottom of the economic totem pole. So all y'all did was create a document that states as such, and it's like duly noted. But that's very repetitive. And I'm personally. When I saw the report, there were 4 pictures on the front cover. One of them happened to be my logo in Skid Row, the Skid Row City Limit logo. Normally, I'll be on the show with my shirt on. But anyway, they got that on the front cover. They didn't ask me for permission to use my intellectual property. And so now I got to send an email over to these. I mean, it's great. It's a report, and I'm honored. I'm flattered. But we got to get some structure here. Trust and believe. If you put Mickey Mouse on the cover, Disney going to come hollering at you. Mm-hmm. So my whole thing is respect the brother. And, so there's a whole bunch of other different issues, in terms of Black. They want to honor and respect Black folks. Y'all just disrespected the brother and use his intellectual property without approval. So
I understand. Well, we certainly have to come back and talk about this some more, because there's a starting place to eradicate homelessness. And you're right, there's many tentacles to it, but we have to be able to start someplace. Somebody's listening to the show that wants to do something. And I Liberated Sisters is going to adopt this program that I saw recently. But go ahead.
No, I just want to say now, when we talk about eradicating homelessness, ending homelessness, things of that sort, I mean, it's real simple. We got to put shovels in the ground.
Yeah, and build housing.
So let's say, because when they talk about L.A. City, okay, Skid Row's L.A. City, but, in L.A. County, there are 88 cities in L.A. County. And so Los Angeles is just one of them. And so if you create all this housing in Los Angeles, other folks are going to migrate from other. So we got to look at the entire county. Mm-hmm. In Los Angeles County, there's 11 million people there, and then of that, they're saying at face value, if you believe the data and statistics, there's around 60,000 homeless people. So if we want to talk about homeless housing from the ground up, 100 people per building. At 60,000, we're going to need 600 buildings to accommodate everybody, at least get close. And, so we need 600 shovels in the ground. Mm-hmm. So if there's no, we're talking about true ending it. We want to end it right now. We need to identify properties, identify, the construction folks and the funding, and let's get 600 shovels in the ground, because it takes on average, 3 years to actually build brand new construction from the ground up. And so, all these temporary solutions like these little shelters and stuff like that's eating up the money because even though there are shelters, you say, oh, they're indoors. They're still homeless. They're just indoors. Mm-hmm. So that's not ending homelessness by building shelters. Shelter. It's a shelter. It's temporary. They're still homeless. Yeah. They need something with key. If no keys involved to the doorknob to go in, they still homeless. And so what are we talking about? Shelters is not the solution. And so the city of L.A., United Way, and all these folks, what is the new slogan? Everyone in. Like, no, we don't want. They just want them indoors so they don't have to look at us.
Oh, I get. Oh my God, we gotta get some more. You gotta come back. I have a minute to wrap, but come back with the Skid Row report. If not next week, the week after, but we will confirm it.
Absolutely.
We'll bring Brother General back because we really are we can never, go deep enough. This is a really, really serious
and I want to hear from the people.
Issue. That's right. And they're talking online, and I didn't give the call-in number. But at the end of the day, we will bring Brother General back. I wanted to say before we go that I saw something at a coffee shop. I'm going to shout it out. Watts Coffee House, thank you so much for being there. But Watts Coffee House has a poster up, and it's called Deserving of Dignity, Products and Panty Drive. And I saw that and I was like, whoa, this is phenomenal. But what this organization, it's a nonprofit, but what this organization does is it collects underwear and other feminine products, toiletries and socks for women and girls. And their quote is, "Deserving of Dignity was formed by women for women to address the personal needs caused by the inadequate hygienic resources available to the homeless female population." And I saw a bin, and I gotta say, yeah, I love it. Nice. And I saw a bin, but when I went in to look and see, well, how full is it? Or I've come back and give something. It had trash in it. Wow. And I was like, oh my God, people are not reading and paying attention to what this great coffee house has here. So Liberated Sisters is going to adopt this nonprofit because I know that could be a challenge. Any other challenge, anything that women and girls are facing, much less all of our family members down there, brothers and sisters, children, they need. And homelessness is neither a disease nor a crime, but a very serious problem. This is a quote by Timothy Pina. But at any rate, this Deserving of Dignity, their website is deservingofdignity.org. Deservingofdignity.org. That touched my spirit right there. So we're going to wrap it up.
Let me just interject quickly. That's a grassroots nonprofit.
Wonderful.
General Jeff, I'm not hating on all nonprofits. There are a lot of grassroots nonprofits that are really about the cause. But a lot of times when the nonprofits get too big, they wind up chasing after the funding and they lose focus of the cause. So
I do understand.
I just want to put that out there.
Well, thank you so much, because I was going to ask you about them, but I said I don't know if
I don't know them
real or not, but I know that cause. I'm going to go forward. And so Liberated Sisters, deservingofdignity.org. If you listen and you want to help, please go to their website. Let them know Liberated Sisters sent you. But let's pick that up, because just imagine having those hygiene needs and just not having anything to care for yourself as a female, right? So that's our show for today, Brother General. We never can get enough, but I'll let you know.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, Brother General will be back next week or the week after. You will hear it here. Check my Facebook page. And also, so thank you to Brother Brian X. Crawford for being with us. Brother Jesse, inshallah, will be back next week for the Farrakhan Factor. And thank you to Sister Felicia, the Poetess Morris, and Morris Media Studios for having us. I'm Sister Charlene Muhammad saying, if it's impacting our community or can uplift us as a people, let's talk about it. Peace.